Should be good.
So I can call the meeting to order?
I think so.
All right.
Double check this here.
It's 6:30 and I'll be calling the meeting to order. Roll call, Catherine?
Here.
Katie? Katie? Katie Thermos?
Here.
Robert Gunther?
Here.
Bruce Belargin?
Here.
Roxanne Kendall? Here. Lori Belargin here. Patty Jo Forsberg is absent tonight. Our district mission: together we engage, educate, and empower all learners, bridging their passions to pathways to create successful futures and positively contribute to our local and global communities. Would anybody like to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Bruce.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I did not receive any contact from anyone wishing to make a public comment.
Neither did I.
So we are on to number 5, Building and Grounds Budget Presentation. Mr. Leopold,
Am I on?
you
You're
are
on.
Where do I get to go?
in front of the smartboard, please.
Do you have a graphic?
No, no
Oh,
graphics
you
tonight.
can stand. Right there is perfect.
Right here?
I think so.
Yeah. We're going old fashioned today. Can you guys hear me out there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm here tonight to talk a little bit about 2021, what we have going moving forward. Up to this point, we've been keeping our expenses to a minimum, not knowing how the year would pan out with the COVID activity going on out there. So we will see where we're at when we get closer to the end of the school year. If we have leftover funds, we may be doing a few more things. As far as 21-22 school year, we should expect some normal funding, normal expenses, you know, with some inflationary increases that we would normally have. So we should expect that to go up a little bit from what we're spending this school year. We're starting to see at the elementary school VAV components, those are HVAC components, modulating valves, which are part of the HVAC componentry, that are starting to need replacement. With the age of that building, we're going to start to see that more and more, and we're going to try to plan to have some funds available as we get into that. Those particular components are fairly expensive, so it's something we're going to need to budget probably moving forward in the next 5 years. The ES also has a heat recovery unit that's in need of repairs, and that could be fairly significant. We're trying to get some parts quotes and the cost to repair it, the labor to repair it. That's something that isn't working right now, not totally necessary. We kind of put it on hold just based on what's going on this year, so that's something that's out there and we're going to have to address at some point in the future. The middle school, we're keeping an eye on the main entry 1 over by the flagpole, our main entry at the building. With the weather the way it is, a winter season, we haven't been through a season down there yet. I just want to make sure everybody's aware we have slip and fall hazards down at that entry, just because it never sees any sun. So I want the district to be aware of that. So I have mentioned to various people about a possible covering, a lean-to against the wall of the gym, or maybe even a covering over the main plaza there, because what we've seen is kids up to this point, they want to run out to the parent's car, and if it's icy or slippery or it's snowing, it makes for a hazard. if we have something that's dry that they can get under and wait and not be in such a hurry to get to those cars, we think we're gonna have less problems there. But just, we're gonna kind of monitor that, see how that goes, how slippery that goes, but we can throw as much salt out in that entry as we can, but it's still, it's gonna be problematic, we feel, so just be aware of that. The other thing we have going, the high school lab chemical we collected before the construction process has not been disposed of yet. I've got a list out to a vendor to see how much that's gonna cost, because we have a pretty good amount of chemicals that we have to get rid of, and that was pared down just based on the curriculum changes. We don't use the chemicals anymore, surplus things, and trying to keep basically the inventory down to a manageable level. So I got, the other place I have to send a list to is the clean sweep that the county has, and that's usually the most reasonable and cost-effective way to get rid of the chemicals. So that's something, I don't know what that cost is gonna be, but when I know, I will pass that along. At the high school, we're also investigating a couple of steel storage containers. Basically, like the storage containers we had for the materials we put in there from the buildings before construction to store things. We have a lot of athletic gear that we don't have storage spaces for. If there is a storage space, it's probably in a space that it's not supposed to be. So athletics has asked me, you know, if we could purchase a couple of containers, and I think that's a great idea. The cost is fairly reasonable, runs from $2,000 to $4,000 a container. It's yours to keep, it's sealed, it's very secure, and they can have the container out where they're using it or wherever their activity is. So I think that's a good thing to have, and we're looking at. I'm soliciting vendors for estimates to apply security window film to all the new doors we had during construction. We did that, I think, probably 2 years before construction as part of the state security grant. But we have entries that we need to reapply that just because we simply put new doors in the buildings. So I'm gonna have a couple of parties give me a price on that. So we're gonna try to get that done this year before the school year's out. That also includes new entry decals, numbers above all the entry doors. Police and fire use that to identify what doors to go in if they get a call. That's kind of important. The numbering system has changed because we've added doors. So the numbering, the old system is not current. So I'm looking at getting pricing for that also. We're continuing to monitor 2020 projects, the summer project, construction project. That's an ongoing thing. It's probably gonna take us a couple of years to get everything cruising or running like it's supposed to run. So we've had our controls vendors out here quite a bit, fine tuning, getting things the way we want them, not the way they want to operate. So that's a continuing thing we'll look at. And as we move closer to the new spring season, we'll be getting into the cooling cycle, which we haven't run any of these systems through yet. And that's something we'll be watching all the way into the fall time frame once we get back into the heating cycle again. So those are big things. They're on the back side of, you know, what we do, and nobody sees that, but it's a big deal. Another thing you want to be aware of, we're seeing custodial wage scales increasing. As you recall, a couple of years ago, we were fighting to keep people employed here as custodians just because we didn't have a good wage rate. We're starting to see that again as the minimum wage rises. We got folks that want to come in here and they want to make a certain amount of money, and a lot of times we've seen in the last couple of months that people don't want to work here because we aren't paying enough money. So I want the district to know that we're starting to see some difficulty in getting satisfactory workers or custodial people on board. And if we can keep those people, you know, they tend to be here long-term. And when I say long-term with our custodial people, we're probably talking a couple months, you know, to 6 months. That's basically a long-term custodial employee. So just be aware that this climate's out there. We're just seeing some trends. I wanted to pass that along. So if that comes up, you've definitely heard it from me. The other thing I want to let the board know is I'm going to be retiring at the end of the year. So with that said, we need to look at a replacement. I would like to see whoever fills my position to come in at the start of the school year, because there's so much to learn and so much to know. Nobody's going to be able to come in here in 2 weeks and keep the facilities running like it is now. The other thing I would recommend too, and I brought this up before, is another maintenance tech. I'd like to see a maintenance tech at the middle school, because my job basically entails, and it has, not just because of construction, I could read 24 hours a day and not get caught up with what I have right now, because it's just impossible. There's so many regulations and things coming at us. It's hard to know what's going on. Winter and summer months are difficult. If we got anybody that's on vacation in the winter months and we need snow plowing or snow removal, that leaves us with 2 people. And that's not enough to, you know, provide a safe environment for our staff and students. Summertime, we have a lot of outdoor activity. One of our guys right now, he's basically on the field every day of the week, doing softball, baseball, soccer, lining fields, whatever. We hardly take care of that. He hardly takes care of his building just because he's busy taking care of athletic things. Sometime before school starts, I will be putting a list together of things that I think that are deficient or we aren't keeping up with, so you guys have a better idea of what I'm talking about, because I could probably stand here all night and tell you where we're deficient, what we need to do, and how it should be done. And I think this would give the district a pretty good footing for operating like we should be operating. We are letting things go because we don't have enough people to do it, or they aren't done in a timely fashion. We just don't have the time. So I just want to throw that out there. Basically, that's it. If anybody's got any questions, I would love to answer them.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
first of all. Secondly, on some of those items like the energy recovery wheel, I didn't even write down the stuff you first had at
At the elementary?
the elementary.
Yeah.
Is there any way we can have Benedict or M&J price those ads and maybe get them added into some of these, our budget we still have left?
We could.
I don't know, you said they're pretty good chunks of money, and if, you know, this is for maintenance and deferred maintenance we wanna do, I know, upfront, getting it taken care of now would be a better option than maybe some of these other things we have.
Yeah, I can definitely do that.
Or, I mean,
Absolutely.
I think if we let M&J know, they could probably give us a number pretty quick, or have their, but.
I have some numbers on it.
Okay.
It's not like it's a foreign thing. I do have some numbers.
I mean, I think that'd help, we can weigh that with some of these other, you know, let items in eat, just in my opinion.
Okay.
To still get them done this year with everything we have, I mean, we might as well use that. It's hard to allocate more funds for it when we're doing all of it, or not all of it, but the majority of it now.
Right. I can put a number together, definitely.
And then, isn't Blue Ribbon
Yep.
up this year? Aren't they up for contract?
I think so.
renewal? Is that?
They have 3 years.
I think this is, or is this the end of the second year?
I think we're going into the 3rd year with the new school year.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, the time goes so fast, it's like, but we've been real happy with them. I mean, they're super responsive to us, which we haven't had since I've been here.
Right. I mean, like you said, it's just something that I'm sure will be
But it's unbelievable the way the employees go. I know, I think last week we had 4 interviews set up and I think 1 person showed up. It's awful. So, that's the way it is out there. I just don't want anybody to be surprised.
Do we still have quite a bit of classroom equipment and so forth that's in storage because of trying to make space for, social distancing purposes?
I know we have enough classroom furniture to operate with the distancing that's required now. And we still have some furniture in storage. And I think we're also looking at purchasing some additional furniture based on some budget numbers or some surplus money we have left over from the project.
Yeah, there's some high school rooms that didn't get much done.
But I think we're in pretty good shape there. I think the principals are pretty happy with what they have.
I was just wondering if we ever freed up that space, if it would give athletics more storage space, but.
Well, this stuff is stored, we've got this stored in some semi-trailers, don't we?
Some of it,
Yeah.
not a lot. But space is always hard to come by. You know, we're putting stuff in equipment rooms and places that probably it shouldn't be. But that's pretty typical wherever you go.
Mhm.
But we try to limit that as much as we can. You know, if we get input from the principals and the teachers, we have a pretty good idea what we need or what we need to have on hand. So I think we have a pretty decent handle. That's a recap. I didn't go into what we did last year because there was so much we did, I couldn't tell you what we did. It was amazing. The staff, our own B&G guys and the construction crew that was out here and our Market Johnson, Wool, everybody did a great job to make it happen because I didn't know if we could do it, but we did. It was pretty incredible, and I think the savings that we got out of it were well worth it. But it took years off my life, so that's why I'm retiring at the end of the year. I don't want to do that again. And we'll be doing it again this summer by the sound of it, so. But a little bit is a lot easier to manage than what we went through, so.
So when you say retiring at the end of the year, it'll be August?
No,
January
June.
1st.
January 1st.
January, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yep, stick the year out. Anybody got any other questions? Feel free, call, send me an email anytime, be happy to answer.
Thanks, George.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you hear me?
Mark,
Yep.
enrollment chart?
Right, item 6, this is a chart we have to approve in January of each year, which shows the number of sections and seats that we have open. And it hasn't changed because we haven't changed staffing or sections over the last 2 or 3 years. It could possibly change in the future depending on our enrollment, but it really, it's necessary for the state to have this. If we decline some open enrollment kids and we give them a reason that we don't have room, and we have to be able to prove that. So, again, it hasn't changed in the last few years.
Mark, I have a question.
Yes.
So when you look at that chart, do you see any big discrepancies from other years?
Well, obviously this year we do because of homeschooling and our enrollment is down. So again, we have more capacity, but we don't know how that will change. The only thing we'll run into trouble with on this, and we'll have to change it, if we go through, if we lose students and we go through reductions, then we'll have to recalculate, our class sizes and section, numbers and things like that. And we were just talking before here, I don't see us making any drastic moves for this next year. But I think the following year, we're really gonna have to take a look and see what we have for students, because we don't know who's gonna show up this next fall.
So these available spaces, are we including kids who are right now doing virtual learning?
I believe we are.
And we've got 40, we have space for 40 kids in 3rd grade?
Our 2nd grade class must be 85 kids
These-
right now.
I'm gonna have to, we just got this this afternoon, so I haven't had a chance to look at it and compare it to previous years, but these numbers look significantly different to me than previous years.
Well, you can take a look at it, we just have to act on it at our business meeting.
Okay,
It has to be done in January.
So here's my concern. So if we have 30 openings and we get 30 requests and the distance learners come back, we're gonna be way over.
great.
What we don't wanna do is, we really don't wanna limit our capacity. We do wanna show available spaces so we can take in open enrolled kids. And then we react to that when we determine if our classes are too large, we have to add another section.
Well, I guess we just need to keep a really close eye on it.
Yeah, and again, we haven't changed our sections, so, and we're down students, but we just don't know who's gonna show up, and that's where we have to stay fairly flexible.
But I think, every month when we look at our district enrollment, we're down, like 60 or 70 kids from last year?
We're down in that 45 to 50 from last year.
But I mean, if you count, this is significantly more than 45 or 50.
I think our trend from 10 years ago has been down.
Oh, it has been. We're down-
But that's because Lori, he said the distance learners are figured in here. This is bodies. The count we're seeing is bodies. So the fact that there's 30 third graders, probably 28 of them are distance learning.
Well, that's what I just asked. I asked if we're counting our just virtual learners.
Yeah,
And he said yes.
And I believe we are counting them.
I don't,
It would be good to verify that.
Yeah, no, I sure can. This is the first glance at it here. If we want to change something, we sure can. We haven't changed anything in the last few years because we haven't added any sections.
Well, unless I'm, Catherine, I mean, we still have the limitations of the number of kids per class and the number of classes for each grade. And so that plays into how many kids you open enroll.
Yeah, the contentious piece was always a class size piece, I shouldn't say contentious, but, you look in column B, a lot of those classes are not at that size. I mean, we have low class sizes, which has always been a plus for us.
Yep, I agree. My concern again is that we get all these distance learners back and we get 32 open enrollees and suddenly we're not gonna be looking at good class sizes. That's my concern. I'm not saying we need to do anything. We just need to keep a close eye on it because we really don't have class size limits. We've just been lucky enough that we've been able to keep them manageable.
all right, so we're gonna get some verification on these numbers.
Yep.
And it will come back to our meeting later in January, our regular session. Did anybody else have any questions or concerns? Mark, then, district health update?
Yeah, talked to Ryan this morning, and we're almost 100%. We're like, I think we got one staff that's out on a close contact. We've got, now, he just sent me an email about a half hour before the meeting, I couldn't get hold of him, that I think we have 2 kids, 2 students that are positive or close contact, but we're coming back full speed after the break here now, so we'll see if there's any lingering ramifications of the, the holiday break, but right now we're looking strong.
Anybody have any questions about that? Yeah, I
Yeah, it's
know.
very good news.
I know there was a close contact phone call today for, in athletics.
Was there? Yeah, he just sent me, just about a half an hour before the meeting here, sent something, and I don't know who it all involves, and he didn't get back to me, so we'll see what that is, but as of this morning,
Yeah.
it was really
yeah,
good news.
The phone call was this afternoon.
So, but again, this thing changes.
Yeah, it changes by the hour.
It does, it does.
But I do think it is really good.
And I think, a lot of the schools around us now are, starting to go back face-to-face rather than the blended or what have you. I think people are seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, I just hope it's not a train.
Anybody else?
I can say that I've been on the receiving end of those phone calls a couple times, and it's just been handled so well. And I just want to point that out, that I'm really impressed. It really stinks when I get the call, but they're doing a great job.
It's, I'll pass that on, it's a tough deal for them, but they're used to it now, and they're a little tougher, and people have been decent.
Construction projects?
Okay, this is what, I sent that note out today, just that, those maps again, about the drop-off piece we talked about last time, and I wanted to verify with Ryan some of the numbers that we have. And so we'll take all this A, B, and C to kind of together, because we're sitting right now, it looks like we've got about 627,000 free and clear above what we passed or approved last time. We approved roughly around 1.5 in those added projects that we had. And I said I'd get some more information out about those, or we talk about the drop-off piece here, if this is something we want to look at. This drop-off piece, there's 2 versions, there's A and B. George and I were talking a little bit more about it today, and both he and I, are really looking at Exhibit B, where you have one way in, one way out, a circular motion. And it eliminates this drive up here. So there's no chance of kids getting run over here. Our big blind spot is around that building though. Over, just as you walk out on the far side to open to the open to the public. If we do this, Exhibit B, it kind of creates more of a play area actually out here, or more of a safe zone where vehicles won't be crossing. Exhibit A, you kind of still have the same thing with, you have a safer drop-off point, but you still have vehicles coming up, driving straight up and making, it's not so much a loop, but a big U coming through. It is one-way traffic. But again, if we want to look at that, and that project's going to be roughly right around $415,000. But there is probably $50,000 worth of, there's about $80,000 of contingency and project costs involved with that. The construction costs were $335,000, contingency was 10%, which was $33,000, project cost 15%, which was $50,000, and they wanted to recommend a budget of $418,000 for that project. And George and I talking today, that would leave us You know, if we went ahead with that, it'd roughly leave us around $220,000 to do some miscellaneous projects at the middle school, or some of these other deferred maintenance pieces. And the middle school, George, we're talking about some of these rooms, like the music area,
The music
needs
area.
new lighting, new flooring, a little bit more work in fax. Fax has had some work done in it. We don't feel that total renovation is needed in that room, because they did have some work done. Are there any other projects over at the,
No, it's basically the base room and the music wing. We still have old lighting in there, old ceiling tile, old carpet. They kinda got left out on the referendum side, but, I mean, any lighting we do is, also we're gonna get a little payback from Focus on Energy, just to go to new fixtures and things. And Mark alluded to the options up here around the district. I keep telling Mark and Dave that, you know, it's not, we're gonna have an accident down on that corner by that garage at some point in time if we don't do something, because with the delivery trucks, the trash truck, the buses that are out there at noon dropping kids off, and parents coming and going, all it's gonna take is a couple of people not paying attention, and somebody's gonna get run over. And that's why the one option we looked at that has a green grassy area, if parents wanna walk up here, there's gonna be no cross traffic going through that area. Right now, there's always a chance of something happening. It's just, since I've been here, it's just a very unsafe setup there. And I hope you consider that, because if some kid gets run over, or somebody gets hit, we're gonna wish we did it. So, that's my input on it.
So are you talking about Exhibit B or Exhibit A?
It's the one where there's no direct traffic coming up the hill.
Exhibit B has one entry and one exit,
Okay.
just to the south of the garage.
This keeps our kids separated from any traffic. But I think that's money well spent if, you know, if you decide to do that.
All right, so if we are looking at this, you said it leaves about 200,000?
Roughly, yeah, because you got about 627 and a half. And again, Randy and I went through these numbers today. I want to verify them with Dave, so let me just triple check this. But it looks like we have about 627.5 remaining. And so again, this drive will be roughly 400. That leaves you with, about 2.25 left for taking on. And we don't have prices on the middle school yet with the carpeting and the ceilings and the lights yet.
But it's relatively small. Those aren't big expense items.
So you could put, if you do that, you could still do some of these things, the deferred maintenance pieces, because I
Yeah.
do believe we should do these deferred maintenance pieces, so we don't have to take them out of our budget, because as I mentioned after meeting last week, that budgets are gonna be, after this whole thing gets reconciled with the state and what have you, budgets are gonna be tight for schools in the next few years, I believe. So anything we can spend here on deferred maintenance, we don't have to take out of our 01 or 10 general fund.
Yeah, I'd like to see those numbers with this at the next, even if it's the regular session, at least we have the numbers there. George said we've got them pretty.
On those projects that he mentioned, yeah, because that was the first I'd heard about them tonight too, so I'd like to see those too and see what they are, but this just kind of narrows it down a little bit. It's nothing we have to act on tonight. It's just that I wanted to get that information out to you so you're thinking about this, and whenever we decide to make a move on it. Now, I think you'd mentioned last week about that electronic sign money. We put that into this amount also. So there was 120 for monuments. We had a range of about 50 to 75 for electronic signs, so they had already taken out 50,000 of it and put it in the contingency. Now we took the rest of the 70 and put it in the contingency. So that would wipe out that dollar amount for that electronic sign. So down the road, if you wanna do it, you're gonna have to find some money for it.
So, to move forward this summer, what do we need to decide in January at the next regular session meeting?
Well, you know, you like to get these things out to bid as soon as you can, but again, we gotta feel comfortable with what we're doing here. And I, again, reconcile these numbers with Randy, I did with Dave, I wanna make sure where we're at. I think, George, if you can get those, we just need to get the numbers on the middle school firmed up and these new things that you brought up tonight. And then I'd feel more comfortable with, you know, let's bring it back and talk about it at the next business meeting. If there's any questions with it, you know, again, we'll get the answers for you. So as soon as we get those numbers, we can send them out to you so you see what they are and, you know, possibly take some action at the next meeting, or if it needs to go to another work session, we'd do it. You know, when you get down to the end here with these funds, I don't wanna go over, you
Right.
know? And I wanna make sure we're, you know, we have 50 cents left over positive,
Yeah.
so. So we'll get that information out to you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments about this?
There isn't really much for lead time on this stuff.
There,
So,
it
there
doesn't
isn't.
require?
I don't think there's a lot of lead time on this.
As
this
far
work.
as,
Like for timing, we gotta order something 12 weeks before it shows up here.
I don't think, with these
So-
projects here, I think it's gonna be pretty good.
Yeah, so that, like when you're saying, when do we have to make the drop dead date? I mean,
Yes,
February isn't gonna,
okay.
it's just getting our project ahead of other projects.
Right.
You know, so we get the best price before,
It's
so.
not a high pressure thing, we just need to make sure we're got our
So
ducks in a row.
in,
If we had to wait until February, we could probably make it in February, I don't wanna push it past, otherwise you get down the list and then instead of using total,
The prices go up.
we use, yeah, some we use a lot higher, because everyone's got work in the spring.
so we could perhaps make a decision on this parking lot thing in January and not decide on what to do with the rest of it until February or March, when we have better numbers.
I mean, the earlier you do it, you're gonna have the better numbers.
Yeah.
The earlier you do it, for any of them, but I'm just saying, there's no, we don't have to drop dead in February,
No,
and the project doesn't go,
Okay,
so.
this is low pressure here, we just wanna make sure we do it right.
all
But yeah,
right.
that's, I mean, if we get the right
Yeah,
numbers,
you
we
gotta
have,
good numbers.
we have them all in, we can all look at it and make a decision. But if we're
Okay.
not comfortable at the regular session, it could go, no, I don't think there is.
Katie or Catherine, did you have anything else?
No, thank you.
Nope, sounds good.
All right, so we will have the construction projects come back to the next meeting for possible action. Are we ready to move on to number 9 then?
Yep,
All right. The policy updates are listed. I did send out a page of notes. And the policies with the additions and choices marked. Did anybody have any questions or comments on any of the policies?
I do.
Yep,
Take a look at the policy, I think it's 8,500, it's food services.
right.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to clarify to make sure. So we're checking the option that if a child does not have funds, they still receive a minimum nutritional meal. They just do not have access to the a la carte.
Correct.
However, if they have cash.
Thanks, George.
Let me go back to that, where that
I
is.
believe that's correct, but check it.
Because it even says if it is past due, I wanna make sure we're not turning anybody away for a meal, no matter what.
Yeah, that's always been our policy not to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they can even purchase à la carte items, Catherine, if they have the cash in hand, regardless of whether the account is in arrears or not.
Even better, there we go.
And we did send an email to Dave about this policy, and he, because of the holiday, did not have time to get back to us. So we might get some additional information, but at this point, this is where we are on this one.
Okay, sounds good, that was my question.
And it,
Anybody else have a question on that one?
I do. There's the food service program may participate in the farm to school program
Yep.
using locally grown food. So I asked about this about maybe 5 years ago, it was before Mark. And I was told by the school district that we could not do it because it required $1 million insurance policy.
Never heard of that.
it's in the state law.
Maybe, has that changed in the last 5 years?
That it could have.
Okay. I
don't
was told
know
that you could not bring food from farms into the school because of liability issues, which, you know, I was sad to hear about that because I would love to try getting more of that into the school.
Mhm.
So that's just something that was told to me, whether, I don't know, but that's what I was told, that we couldn't do it.
How much would a $1 million insurance policy cost?
I know, and
What? $250 a month?
Right. Not much.
You know?
so that's just something that I
Those are-
remember,
I'd have to ask Dave to get an old Connor to see. I have no idea on that.
because I would love that, I like that, I'd like to keep that in this policy, but just wanted to bring that up.
And the recommendation is for the Wellness Committee to take a look at policy 8510 and make recommendations to the board.
Yeah, we'll talk about this on Wednesday, and, you know, our wellness committee has kind of been taken over by our, I'm not at a loss for the program we're running now. I can't think of what it is. Help me out here. Katie was the coordinator.
We're talking about the employee council?
No, no, Katie Francis.
Oh,
What she-
mindfulness?
Yes, so the work that group has kind of been taken over by a lot of the mindful piece there, but, you know, I got this on, we're gonna talking on this on Wednesday, because we had a former principal that headed up the wellness committee.
Right.
And from there, we have no one leading that. And I hope I'm not misspeaking on that, but I don't recall someone else picking it up. And that's when we made the transition into mindfulness and all those activities. So I have to find out where our wellness committee is, because I just don't know.
Okay.
So,
And in policy 9150, visitors to schools, there is a portion about official visits to school by board members. And the discussion that we had was if a board member is a participant of a committee, is that, for example, Catherine and I are both part of the employee handbook committee and we've been at school for meetings, would that be considered an official visit? And if so, how do we want to handle board approval of that committee work being done? Does anybody have any thoughts about that?
Just keep showing up. I mean, like, what do you mean? I don't.
Well, it says in this policy that individual board members who are interested in visiting schools, in keeping with board bylaws, such board member visits shall not be considered to be official unless designated as such. And then you have your choice, and our recommendation would be by the whole board. You know, we could make a blanket designation for that committee work, if the board is comfortable with that. I just wanted to bring it to your attention so that you could think about that, before we approve these in.
Well, if you're on a committee such as employee council or, you know, what have you, like you are with the handbook, I mean, that's official business, you know, as a board. On the flip side of that, you know, if you're by yourself, coming in a building, you're like any other citizen. You know,
Okay.
so subject
Can you
to,
mute your mic or turn your TV down, please?
so with building security and what have you, it's, you know, that when I look at that policy, I think the policy is really good. And I don't think it needs any tweaking really at all. It's pretty definitive there that, you know, if anyone goes to buildings, you know, just call the principal, make an appointment, what have you. But as far as that official business, you know, you're on a committee or something that, you know, that should be board approved.
We have to approve official business.
Mhm. The visits would not be considered official unless they were designated as such by, and there's 3 choices, by the board, by the president, or by a committee chairperson. You know, and it was our recommendation that it be by the entire board, but we could approve as official visits committee work, you know.
Well, didn't we talk about this before, that when we said, who at the board wants to be part of this committee, and you and Catherine said yes, and we said, great, go for it. In my opinion,
Isn't that enough for approval?
that would be approval to me, I guess.
Yeah.
Sounds like consent,
Okay.
at least.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everybody was clear on it. For example, at the last meeting, Mark brought up the employee council again and wanting a board member to be part of that, and I said that I could, if anybody else would also like to be a part of that, but that would be another example of a committee where board members are at school to participate.
Good.
All right? Okay? All right.
No, it's good.
I think that pretty much covers most of the big items. Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
I do on the committee section. So, we used to operate as committee prior to going to the work sessions. And I went through the policies. I don't see work session guidelines or policy on how the work sessions should function, or, you know, how the procedures should be. So I don't know if there's value in having that included in doing, you know, since we've modified our structure. The other thing is, you know, reading through the committee section, it states that all committees shall comply with the open meeting law.
Right.
So I'm curious on if the policy committee would have to align by that policy. You know, I realize there's not quorum. Quorum's needed for, it says, to take any action, but that, obviously, the open meeting law providing notices for each meeting, posting time, date, place, subject matter of the proposed meeting, and any matter intended for consideration at the contemplated closed meeting is pursuant. So, I'm just curious on the structure of that, and if it should, you know, by interpreting this, so there's no questions coming with that.
Right. I don't know, I don't have an answer. That committee, since we went to work sessions, do you have something to offer?
Just that, you know, I did talk to Trevor about that, and I believe his answer was that committees such as the policy committee doesn't have to post meetings or take notes or what have you. because it's, it's 3 people. So, I mean, I can re-verify that with him.
I'd have him take a look at this policy, perhaps, just to make sure the policies are aligned correctly with his interpretation of it, just to make sure that if a question
If
doesn't.
you like that, I'll have him take a look at it.
A complaint or a claim or anything comes out of it, I'll make sure people are,
My understanding was since we had started the work sessions and didn't have
Yeah.
official committee meetings,
yeah,
and, I do remember you saying that Trevor had said that was all right since we had changed the format of how we were doing monthly meetings. But to verify?
Yeah.
Okay.
because
Thank
it's
you.
essentially a committee of the whole. It's like tonight's meeting is committee of the whole, but we have a quorum, so we can make action. Whereas versus when Randy was the superintendent, we had a minority number, and we could only make recommendations to the full board,
Right.
and all those, and I certainly like this format a lot better.
I think
just
it's
because
more
everybody's
efficient.
More informed and up to speed, and,
Well, it's more transparent, everyone hears everything.
right, and I already hear things twice. It's like so.
All right.
I have a really minor question. 8390 animals on district property.
Great.
And the only reason I'm bringing this up is, are we actually enforcing people that walk their dogs on that path right by the, that goes past the football field and everything? Comes from the meadows
Mhm.
and goes, on campus.
Just
by-
enforcing as far as,
Like, because there is a sign right there that says no animals on district property, no dogs or something. So are people not allowed to walk their dogs on school property too?
Just said they had to clean up.
we've never, as long as I know, we've never gone after anybody for walking their dog.
It's never been
Okay.
enforced, and that's why the recommendation was to put that language in there to comply with the village ordinances,
Yeah, they had
because the suggestions that are being made on that brings our policy to what our current practice is.
Okay, what am I missing? Which part of this is,
It's in the email that I sent
Oh,
with the
okay.
notes.
All right, okay. Sorry, I missed that.
Because you're absolutely correct. The way the policy reads and with the signage that's out there, it makes it, that our policy is that they cannot walk their dogs, and I know lots and lots of people do. And it's no one's ever been stopped from doing that.
Okay.
And in fact, it is the only way for the residents of the meadows to get to, if your child wanted to come into town, it's the safest route. Otherwise, you have to cross the railroad tracks,
Yeah.
or you gotta go across the double D bridge. So that's why we're working hard to get an additional crossing, so people can, what it's looked like is crossing over the railroad tracks, would cost us a fortune, but.
Bob, in the village, do they have to be on leashes?
Yes,
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
added into the policy.
Yeah.
No dogs at large, right?
Yep,
Sorry, I missed that.
nope, that's fine.
Well, I kind of just was like, I would like people to feel comfortable just kind of, as long as they pick up after them.
Yep, and that's part of it too.
Okay.
That's part of the village.
Yeah, right, and that makes sense.
That's all we ask.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so anybody else have any questions or comments about any of the policies? All right, then, these will come back to the regular session. Once around the table. Catherine, did you have anything?
No, I don't.
Thank you. Katie?
No, thank you.
Bob?
One, I don't remember, I know we made, a decision about COVID, if a staff was out for COVID or a student was out for COVID, did that not expire? Isn't that coming up to expiration in January? And we were supposed to look at that again for, so if a staff is out for a close contact, that they're not using up all of their sick time,
Right.
that we have essentially a COVID bank.
It was
that
like
they-
10 days or
Yeah.
something?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought that went for the whole school year. You don't,
I don't know, I didn't know if it was up until January, for some reason it was in my head that we were gonna relook at that in January to see where we were, because I felt we made that last April or March, or let's
I think
let's
it
go
was
to the end of
actually
the year
in
and see what it looks
August
like.
or September.
Yeah,
And then maybe, if it's the 14, maybe scale it back to the 10. I don't know if that's the CDC's guidelines, I just wanted to maybe,
So would that
just-
be Jody's been working on this with the handbook.
Mhm.
However, there are things that are not in the handbook, and she has them as, like, separate
yeah.
attachments that are in that folder, that I don't believe the board can access that folder to see those documents.
Well, the crux of this thing, is, and we've been talking about this with the MBC soups, is that, that whole 10-day piece works out really well if you're only once. But
Right.
you get into the repeat piece, then there's other pieces that, if you are a close contact and you can teleteach, then you don't use those days, doesn't count against you. Or if you are positive and you can't, then, if you've used up that time, then we either have to make some exceptions here, or you have to use sick leave. There's a bunch of different things, tentacles to this, but I don't have an answer to your question, Bob, so I'll
No, that's
find
fine,
out.
I wasn't expecting one,
Yeah,
so
but
I
I-
just wanted to bring it up. Thank you.
Bruce?
I forgot to ask George, but some of the COVID required, or COVID money that was spent, I know was Dave looking into reimbursement for some of that, or was there grants or anything for that? I don't know, if we spent anything additional above and beyond what we normally, is there any
I know
state
he's
funding
keeping,
available?
a real tight record. If there is money out there that is COVID relief type things, I think he's got a pretty good list, but I think you shot me a text about some of the things that are happening now with cleaning processes and how we're coming to, hopefully, over the next 4 to 5 months, maybe some changes in what we put in place for this year may not be in place for next year. How soon, what kind of cost savings would we have on that? Like, are we gonna keep extra cleaners on? Are we, a big cost, remember when we were gonna put the bill on an ingenuity? Well, now we had this chunk of money that we're over budget because of that. Well, now it's, we're down to half of that. So again, I don't have the new numbers on that from Dave, so we just gotta get those. But that's the same conversation that I have to have with George too. We just haven't had that yet.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I thought there was something. Maybe
Yeah,
Was,
I thought there was some kind of.
there was.
Okay.
well, yeah, there was, I just don't know myself the mechanics of it and what was spent and where it could be spent.
Anything else, Bruce?
No.
Roxanne?
Nope.
I'm glad you brought that up, Bruce, because I was, when Dave presented the budget to us and we were 200,000 over budget,
Yep.
and then when George was talking tonight, it kind of sounded like he wasn't over budget, but all that over budget for the district overall, it seemed like a lot of it had to do with maintenance. And so I was confused about that as well. Maybe
Well,
we
the
could-
budget it's a moving target, and, we don't know if we're gonna expend everything, so like, even when we set the budget with the whole ingenuity and all the different COVID things, are we gonna keep, the extra nursing help on? I mean, all these things, I think we're about $800,000 number that threw our budget way off. So, if we return to normal, and what is gonna be the new normal, and just what will we expend through the remainder of this year, so from that point in time, we're 200,000 over budget. But that may be 400,000, or we may turn that around. And that's the process that Dave has to go through you know, making predictions and what have you. A lot of it depends, on we're gonna have a cold winter, you know, heating and what have you. There's just so many things that fluctuate. So I would say, you know, let's say we're 200 over is, okay, we know where we're at. It's kind of like when we did the construction budget. When we first went into it, we were $1 million over until we went to bid, and then we came in 2 million under, so kind of the same thing.
Our regular session is January 25th. Please, those of us who have registered, remember that the WASB convention is coming up. It's all virtual, it's online, and we'll have access to those breakout sessions. My understanding is it's for a complete year, so that will be helpful. Would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I will.
Bob, and a second?
I'll second.
Bruce? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn, the meeting's adjourned at 7:31.